Alright guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to create a jet engine kind of effect, like the flame out of the nozzle of the jet engine. So I'm going to start with a cylinder. This is going to be the emitter for the simulation, and I'm going to create a tyFlow like this, create the default Bird Inferno, and pick the emitter. And that's the initial state from which we're gonna start. Let me just, okay, real time is disabled. I'm just gonna disable whoop. Okay, so first thing, I want to emit only in one direction. So I want to emit from the top surface. So one thing that you could do, you could just grab the other polygons and just delete them and just leave the top circular plate of this mesh. So I'm gonna try to do it in a way that I still preserve the mesh, even though it might not be useful, but I hope that it would show you a way to just have this if you have a more complex geometry that you want to keep together. So I'm gonna add right here for the temperature. I'm going to disable the density. Here's how it looks now, just the temperature. And I'm gonna add a value operator right here. I'm gonna tell it to use a property, and I'm gonna set it to the surface selection, just the selected faces. So I'm gonna convert this to an editable mesh, and I'm just gonna choose the top face. So now nothing visible happens. Let me just go back, enable density, add a value operator there, and connect this to the density as well. So nothing is visible because the temperature is just too low. So this makes it emit the temperature of 1. So it wasn't visible in the viewport. Now the density starts appearing. So this means that here I'm going to multiply the temperature by just another value. I'm gonna multiply it by 6, for example. So 6 means something like 2000 degrees Celsius. So I'm gonna plug it right here, and now the temperature also appears. And this way I can finally disable the density. Right, so I'm gonna set this into replace mode so that it insists that this is gonna be the emitted temperature, so that it's less noisy. And this way I can grab this and I can rotate it around, and the emission is gonna rotate with it. However, in order to make it stronger, I'm gonna disable the motion velocity. I'm gonna emit emission from normals. And now we have this thing. So if I increase the strength, it's just gonna start blowing faster. So I want to emit only, again, using the normals in this direction. So I'm gonna, I can link this, hold on, let me just, yeah, I'm gonna add the value operator right here like this. And so I could use the multiplier 6, I'm just gonna multiply it by 7, because this is what I used in my test scene. Let me just swap those. And now it's gonna start blowing like this. However, it's still a bit spread out. So for example, if I increase this to 8, it's still not very well focused. So what I need to do as well is I gotta go here and just disable the smooth normals, because otherwise it's gonna take the normals of the sides of the cylinder, and it's gonna start taking those into account, and this makes the entire jet wider. So if I enable it, this is how it looks. If I disable it, it gets more concentrated. So this is what I need to do, and I'm also gonna set this one to replace as well. I just wanted to insist that this is going to be the value that is emitted on every frame. I don't want it to be influenced by the values of the underlying voxels. Alright, so now this entire thing is noisy, It's not very pretty, but here we start getting those things that I'm just gonna abuse the solver because it naturally produces these as it emits, then advects, it emits again, then advects, and then we start getting those spots of emission and then the gaps between them. So I'm gonna use those in place of the shock diamonds that we're getting with actual jet nozzles. So, however, that here is just way too noisy. So in order to smooth it out, I'm gonna go here and start changing the simulation settings. So for example, the BFECC advection is very good for adding detail, but in this case, I just wanna take away detail. So I'm gonna set this to backtrace. I'm also gonna zero the vorticity, like this. So now these here are starting to get even more prominent. And then here in the advanced, I'm just gonna turn off the multi-grid conservation. So I want it to be just as basic as possible. I wanna increase the timeline a little so that we could have the moment where it's already formed, and from this point onwards it's gonna just it's gonna look the same. But there is gonna be some ramp-up time before it takes shape at the beginning, so I'm gonna make the timeline a bit longer. Right, so next thing is, let me just double check. I'm also gonna reduce the conservation, so I'm gonna make it 0.2. Alright, so now this way, it's starting to form more. We are losing some of those. So if for example, I increase this a little, those steps are coming back. But I'm going to decrease it and I'm going to bring them back in a different way. So right here I'm going to go to the cooling options, and if I start increasing the cooling, so for example 0.8, 0.9, that's how it's gonna start looking. So in the emitter, however, I can also change the emission thickness. So if I increase this, it's gonna change the shape of the emission a lot. So if you want more nozzle fire, you can increase that. If you decrease it, it's gonna get very weak. So yeah, if I really go over the top, like 0.3, it's gonna get huge. So I'm just gonna use 0.2. I'm still emitting just from the triangles. That's what I want to use. And just go back to the temperature settings. So yeah, if I decrease the cooling, again there's going to be even more fire, like this. If I increase it, it's going to get shorter. So 0.9, 0.95. The maximum here is 1. So yeah, if I go to 0.99, it's going to get very short, like this. And there is also the cooling shrinkage. So let me just lower it a little. How is this? Okay, maybe 0.93 maybe. Okay, so here the cooling shrinkage means that as it cools, it's gonna shrink. So if I increase that, it's just gonna start getting pointier, like this. So maybe even go higher, 40, 80. Like this. So it's gonna get more sharpened at the end. And on the other hand, I can also make this negative. So if I make it 0.10, yeah, like just this is 0, minus 10, minus 20, minus 50. It's going to start spreading out like this. So if this is the kind of effect that you're looking for, you can control it from these options right here. And also I'm going to increase the propagation. So by default, if I decrease this to 0, it's going to get like messier here, more noisy. Just going to get the cooling shrinkage back to 15. So that's the value that I want to use. I'm also going to increase the cooling to 0.95, 98. All right, and if I increase the propagation, the temperature is just gonna start not only dissipating, but it's gonna start like blurring. Actually, it's just gonna start transferring to the neighboring voxels. So if I go with 10, for example, it's gonna start looking like this. By the way, here towards the end it starts getting slow. So just wanna check right here. I'm gonna go to the Inferno display, and I'm gonna enable the sparse cubes. And here you can see that it just gets way too large, so it just continues emitting this way and the grid continues expanding. So this means that I gotta go to the adaptive grid. So I'm gonna disable the expansion by velocity. I'm gonna disable the density because we're not seeing it. I'm gonna also disable the fuel. Alright, but there is still some temperature obviously here that causes the grid to expand, so I'm gonna start raising the bar. So 0.1. This is gonna shrink it a little, 0.2. Maybe 0.3. Yeah, something like this. So let me even extend the timeline a little more, so just that I make sure that it doesn't expand any more than this. Alright, so what's gonna happen if I go with 0.4? Cool, yeah, okay, this looks fine. I'm gonna shrink the timeline then. And this way the simulation is gonna run faster because you're not gonna be spending GPU time and memory calculating those voxels that contain nothing visible. So their velocities, sometimes the velocity in the empty voxels is important, but in this case the velocity right here doesn't really matter. So just closing the adaptive grid, I'm just gonna disable the preview of the sparse cubes right here. And here it is. So the goal of the entire thing was that now that I'm emitting from this side of the simulation, I can just, from this side of the mesh, I can just rotate it and just direct it in, point it in any direction. So yeah, so that it's more universal to use. Alright, so let me just double check my settings. So again, just going back to the BERT Inferno, the simulation settings. So I'm using backtrace, conservation 0.2, no vorticity. Again, if I raise the vorticity here, it's just gonna start getting noisier and those steps are gonna get lost. If I raise the conservation here, this is gonna make those appear. I wonder if I should keep it like this way, like this. So I'm gonna lower it to 0.2, but eventually I might go back here as well. If I go back to BFECC, it's gonna get noisier, and the entire thing is gonna just start dancing side to side. It's gonna start oscillating. And multigrid is off. Without multigrid, it's gonna be like this, and here you're gonna get a lot of noise towards the nozzle. And so that's disabled, and I'm using these values here, but you can still tweak them if you want to get a different looking result. So here in the emitter, just emitting from the triangles. The emission thickness is very important. Again, if I make this 0.25, can I type 2M5? No, it becomes 5.2. Okay, 0.25 like this. So you can just change the amount of emission this way. So I'm gonna go with 0.2, just a little shorter jet. And yeah, that's basically the emission settings and the simulation settings. So what's left is here in the Inferno display, I can start playing with the render settings. So it's classic already. Cool magic. The hot core is gonna make it like this. So these are gonna be very visible and very separate. Oil burn, orange crispy. That's also cool. So that's close to what I want to achieve. Red blaze. It was already red blaze. Yeah. Soft. And the torch preset is a bit, yeah. So you can also use this as a like a jet, like a gas stove kind of look. So I'm gonna base it on the soft preset right here. So I'm just gonna, yeah, I'm gonna leave this. Is it already black? No. Let's make it black. I'm gonna delete this one. Hold on, what happened? Did I accidentally change it? Just I said, oh man, I clicked probably I clicked reset. All right, so let's make it black. I'm gonna make the hotter temperature something like purple, maybe something like this. All right. Then I'm gonna go with a little blue, like this, and then I'm gonna make this one a bit more saturated orange, although it's not quite visible right now. So if I change the intensity, that's how it affects it. So some of these colors start showing here, and now the fire opacity is very important to the way that it's gonna work. So I'm gonna just set the intensity to 1, and I'm gonna try replicating the curve that I used initially. All right, so here the adaptive grid actually starts clipping. So I might lower the bar a bit, something like this. Although that's, yeah, I'm just gonna keep it at 0.3 because these voxels are ultimately not gonna be visible, but the reason is the adaptive grid. So I'm gonna add another point here and another point here. So that's how the curve that I used initially looked. Just gonna go with intensity of 2. Just gonna bunch these up right here, so I can have the inner part more transparent like this. Just make this a bit more orange. All right, and I'm gonna move this so the way that this curve is gonna look. So I'm gonna increase the exponent so that it shrinks. So I'm gonna do something like this. Okay, maybe we'd go with 3 or 4. All right, and then so I can shrink the entire thing if I curve it like this. I can expand it in the other direction. So I'm just gonna have it something like this. Now this point is also very important, so I'm gonna just tilt it a little. And yeah, that's gonna be able to show those colors inside of these pulses right here. So I'm gonna have it like show just a little bit of orange. I can make them completely whole if I go too low. Just gonna move this a bit here. So if I increase this, it's gonna make the inner ones a bit more brighter, but it's gonna also affect the look near the nozzle. So I'm just gonna keep it something like, yeah, something like this. All right, and also let me just go here. So right now the temperature bar is 0. If I start increasing it, like the entire thing is gonna just start disappearing. And if I start lowering it, like just make it 0.5, 0.2, 0.1, it's gonna smooth it out a little. So if that's too noisy, we can just add a little bit more blur, and it's gonna also like sharpen the entire thing like this. And so I wonder if I could, hold on, let me just, all right, so let me do this, just get it a bit longer and then kind of go this way. Yeah, this one doesn't really matter here because it's more in the darker part. Right, so maybe something like this. Yeah, I just want to have a bit more contrast. Right, so maybe something like this, and then again, I can go in the conservation option, I can start increasing this. Make it 0.5, 0.8, and that's going to make those ones more pronounced. And also, there is one more thing that you could do to change the look. So again, with these display options, let me just play a little more with the shrinkage. And yeah, if I go with 0, it's going to look like this. If I go with -40, it's going to start looking this way. So I'm going to go back to 15. Again, the propagation also, if I set it to 0, it's just going to get noisier. 1, 5. So yeah, I can go like this and just go back to 10. If I overdo it, it's just gonna smudge the entire thing, and it's gonna make those yeah, a bit smoother. So going back to 10, and there is one more thing that is also very important. So everything that happens right now runs at 1 simulation step per frame. So let me just, by the way, just make this one a bit more purple and a bit less pink. Maybe something like this. Or maybe I overdid it a little. Okay, something like this, yeah. All right, and here in the tyFlow settings, you can also change the time step. So right now the solver runs at there is one solver step per each timeline frame. So if you change this to half frame, it's gonna smooth the entire thing out, and it's gonna add more of those steps right here. So again, if I change the settings, you can see them more clearly. Like this. I wonder if I should yeah, that's a different way to have this. By the way, here you can see that though there is a very clear difference in color. So if you see that here in the Inferno recall, it might be caused by the compression. So if I go back to standard or lossless, here it is. So this smooths it out. So if you start seeing this kind of stuff, and if it gets more prominent, if it worries you, you could decrease the compression of the RAM cache, because it could cause such changes in the color. So if I go with quarter frame here, these are gonna start merging into one. The entire thing is gonna get very smooth, like this. And again, going back to just a single step per frame, it's gonna look this way. So again, just in order to smooth it out, am I gonna smooth it out if I do this? Or I could also increase the propagation here. Yeah, then decrease the cooling so that the tail is longer, or even more. Change the shrinkage. Can I make it sharper like this? And yeah, basically these are the controls that you can use to adjust it. So that's the overall way that that I'm able to do this kind of jet engine effect. So thanks guys for watching, and see you in the next video. I'm back to show you this kind of look, by the way. Check this out. So this is how it looks, and it's more transparent on the inside, and this is the curve that I used. So changing this marker here could change just the envelope of the smoke. Moving this one could control the more transparent part around here, and this can make those more prominent. Alright guys, thanks and see you. Bye.